This happened to me not too long ago, about 2 years ago. It all started when my cousin, my brother, some friends and I was going to spend a weekend at my grandfather's ranch on the side of the highway. We arrived on a Friday at 6 in the afternoon, and the plan was to stay until Sunday night. Immediately when we arrived, the first thing we did was to set up the tents, although in my grandfather's house we had all the comforts. The idea was to sleep outside under the starlight, as we did with my brothers and cousins as children, and after setting up the tents and put some beers on ice, some friends began to prepare the meat for grilling, and my cousin and I went to get firewood to the back of the house. I have to say that the land is very large, and the front has a large field for exercise, swings among other things. At the back of my grandfather's house, he has his workshop where he keeps some old trucks that, little by little, he has been fixing up. Also in that part there is a road that takes you directly to the river. I remember that since I was a kid, I always liked to get wet and experience some adventure among the trails, and it is more than evident that family Sundays were the best. But as I got older, getting between the gaps in the bush made me feel strange and no longer seemed like the best idea. I felt strange to be alone, far from everything and everyone, with so much silence that it overwhelmed me and made me uncomfortable. But it was not always like that, until one of my relatives was attacked by a wild animal in a forest, and I guess I was left with the trauma that something similar would happen to me too. My cousin and I were looking for firewood when some branches tied with a rusty wire forming a cross caught my attention. I showed it to my cousin, and just when we took some more wood, another figure came out. But this one was made with smaller branches, and it looked like a doll like the ones they use for voodoo. I will not deceive you by saying that it does not bother me, but I tried not to give it importance. I told him that surely my grandfather had made them to pass the time and just threw them there. Anyway, we drank, ate, sang, and the night was so fun and quiet that without noticing it, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. The cold was already becoming unbearable, and several could not stand it anymore, and went to sleep inside the grandfather's house. The rest of us stayed there chatting until we started to tell horror stories. I remember I told them that if they could imagine all the things that happened in those places, especially at night, far away from civilization, everything that happened, and no one would notice. My brother Alex told us that he and his dad had once been scared on the banks of the river one afternoon while they were fishing. He said that they heard some screams that then changed to laughter, and then to crying, and ended in curses towards them. I don't know why, but although it was something unimportant, I was very scared when I heard the story. I took my beer and told them that I would go to sleep since the plan was to get up early and go fishing very early, so everyone followed me. My brother and I slept in one tent, and my friend stayed in the other. I don't know exactly what time it was, but it was still very late at night, and I had the need to go to the bathroom. I didn't put on my glasses. I just went out, walked to the car in which we had arrived, and peed there on the side. In the distance along the road you can hear cars passing by, cows, goats, and some other animals. You know, typical sounds of a place like this. I finished doing my thing, and then, in the distance on a swing, I managed to visualize something. There was something sitting and moving. I don't know why, but I wanted to imagine that maybe it was one of my friends talking to his girlfriend. I didn't give it much importance, and I went back to the tent. Just when I settled down to go back to sleep, I heard the sound of a goat, but I don't know if you can imagine it. It was the sound of a goat suffering, as if it was screaming in pain. I guess my friends were drunk and asleep enough not to notice it. But I put on my glasses, opened the door of the house, and looked out. There was a goat right where I had peed. I took a cigarette and went out of the tent. The goat walked, not towards me, but towards the playground. Being the only thing that moved, I saw it, and out of nowhere it started to run, making goat noises. But to my surprise, out of nowhere it got up and ran on 2 legs, got on a swing, and rocking it started to scream as if it was in pain. I was in shock. I ran and woke up my brother, my housemate. We were both there stunned, seeing a goat up on a swing and now laughing. It did not turn to look at us, but the moon was shining so bright to make us see it clearly, moving its legs and holding on with the other legs of the swing. I could not stand it. I couldn't stand it, and I threw up from fear when I saw the goat jump from the swing and started crying again. I ran to Grandpa's house and he was already waiting for me at the door with a carbine. He was trembling, pale as I was. And then with a tearful and clipped voice, he said something that made my blood run cold. I had heard her talk, but I had never seen her walk on two legs or do what she did. I ran out of the house and went to get my friends up with the lie that Grandpa was feeling bad, but only to be all inside. From there you can only hear the squeaking of the swing and the goat making its normal sounds. My other friends fell asleep, but me and my brother could not. We went out to the living room, and there was Grandpa drinking coffee, crying. I touched his shoulder and asked him, "What is going on?" I told him that nothing would happen because we were all there, and he interrupted me saying, "The other night they knocked on the door, which is very rare on a ranch, if you take into account that they are big properties, and you can't just knock on the door when you have gates to get there, and they are always closed. They knocked on the door and shouted, 'George, open the door, it's cold.'" I froze. It was a mocking laugh, and it was your grandmother's voice. My grandmother had passed away years before. I have never really been to that place again, and I don't plan to ever go there again. I can't get that image out of my mind, the image of that damn goat.